He says, we gotta raise these funds. Question whether it's illegal or not. It's unethical. The election of 2024 is being set up. They're gonna try to steal it again. It's a 501c4 dedicated to protecting this year's election results and standing up against those who attempt to delay the certification, which there isn't any certification in Georgia, just to be clear. He said today, as of 3:30, Georgia voters, we've got a bunch of ballots coming in. Georgia friends and everybody, get your ballots in, baby. A very interesting report here on X from Kylie Jane Kramer telling us that there is some more Georgia election interference afoot. She's got her hands on what are allegedly some very interesting emails and text messages that have come from Brad Raffensberger himself, and he's working to raise funds for this organization called Elections Defense Fund and racing to get that money before November 1st, which is just around the corner. So what is happening here? They are now raising money for another operation, Election Defense Fund. The election is right around the corner, and they're saying Raffensperger wants $5 million. Here's the report saying the Georgia Secretary of State is up to no good, gearing up to go after the state election board. And there have been a bunch of rulings. We've been covering these cases at length. Remember, there was a hand count rule that said you had to hand count the ballots. Turns out, no. And it wasn't even about hand counting the votes. It was just hand counting the number of ballots. That's all. They said no. There were other restrictions and requirements about county observers and having monitors come to these different places. No, all denied. Basically, everything the state election board has attempted to pass to secure the terrible election system in Georgia has been reversed. So what they say now is that Raffensperger sent an email, and it came out in a private capacity that went to a listserv of trial lawyers all across Georgia, soliciting $5 million by November 1st to help fund his election defense fund. And we just explained what they do. Asking lawyers to donate or to contact him via his private Gmail account and his personal cell phone number. So apparently this is the email. He states that election deniers are going to be the subject of this. He also included a woman named Allison Myers. She works for the Secretary of State, but also has connections to Larry Hogan and Nikki Haley, other anti-Trumpers. So she says, when I dug into the Election Defense Fund, I was even more shocked to find that Ryan Germany is on the board of the organization that was created. He is listed as the secretary of the Election Defense Fund, the same Ryan Germany who's supposed to be overseeing the Fulton County election as the auditor. Remember that? And he was the one who was going to help facilitate the monitoring teams. He was the same guy who was around in 2020. So all the dots are connected, right? Very close. Now, Raffensperger specifically targets the board members, Dr. Jan Johnson, Janelle King, and Rick Jeffries. Shout out to those three. As early voting's underway, he says, we gotta raise these funds. Question whether it's illegal or not. It's unethical. The election of 2024 is being set up. They're gonna try to steal it again. Only they will have an additional $5 million to go after anybody in Georgia. Okay, so here is apparently the email. Message from Brad Raffensperger. As Georgia's Secretary of State, I have held both parties accountable to you, the voter, for 6 years, and now I'm asking for your help. Across the country, and including here in Georgia, election deniers and conspiracy theorists have taken their anger to new levels, employing a variety of tactics, including intimidation, legal challenges, and rule changes. In Georgia, they've threatened, harassed, and sued election officials, and as you know, most recently, the Georgia State Election Board was taken over by 3 individuals who have pledged to put partisanship over sworn duty. These members of the state board passed a measure that would empower local officials to refuse or delay certification of the county's election results, creating the potential for another disputed and contentious post-election period in November. A few weeks ago, they passed new additional rules, one rule that will require ballots to be hand counted. And we've talked about many of these. Those have been reversed now. Now, we all know the results in Georgia are going to be close, one way or another. As Georgia's Secretary of State, I'm committed to a free, fair, fast election, must demand the laws followed and the integrity of the election process and results are maintained. Election Defense Fund was created to stand up for this. It's a 501c4 dedicated to protecting this year's election results and standing up against those who attempt to delay the certification, which there isn't any certification in Georgia, just to be clear. EDF will identify local election officials who are most likely to not interfere or otherwise attempt to interfere with the result, educate the public to remind election officials of their duty to follow the law and the potential consequences of not doing so, support lawsuits that seek to force election officials to uphold their duties, and perhaps most importantly, they intend to launch a robust program to respond to combat disinformation and go directly to voters via digital ads. We can accept unlimited contributions. Contributions are confidential, not disclosed to the public. I've attached a contribution form that contains check and wire instructions. You can also make a contribution online at electionsdefensefund.com. Now, I've copied Allison Myers on this email. Please feel free to reach out with any questions at this number or that email. This effort must be funded quickly. Our goal is to raise a minimum of $5 5 million before November 1st. I appreciate your timely consideration. Please feel free to call me anytime. Thank you. Brad Raffensberger and soandso.com at the phone number there. Here is a follow-up to this. So Kylie, the same person who drafted and got her hands on the documents, which were presumably sent or forwarded to her, said that he had responded to her yesterday, and he did. He says, well, the Secretary of State, she says, has been awfully quiet on X. He responded to her yesterday, and he did. I saw the post. He says, Raffensperger, do you have any comment on raising $5 million in a personal capacity for this? Anything you want to say about it? Do you want to respond to this? Is it true? Is it happening or not? So here's the latest from Raffensberger. Been asking ourselves the same. He said, today, as of 3:30, Georgia voters, we've got a bunch of ballots coming in. Georgia friends and everybody, get your ballots in, baby. I'm proud of our election directors for getting the job done. Georgia voters, we're doing a great job. He says, as of this morning, 21,000 overseas ballots have been requested. 19,000 will go to U.S. military personnel and overseas citizens. So again, I don't know how many of those 19,000 are military and how many of those 19,000 are overseas citizens. So early absentee votes are coming in and they're shattering all sorts of records in Georgia. So she wrote this yesterday. Says, how exactly is this 25% of the vote like you stated? I know you're up to something. It's going to come to light. She says, you belong in jail for subverting Georgia elections. And he responded. He says, it's not, Kylie. That was never stated. We'll be reporting 70 to 75% of the total early votes at 8 p.m. And then the election day votes will come in later in the evening. And then he said on Friday, we played the clip this morning on our member stream. He then said on Friday will be the deadline for the Uokava ballots. So we'll have another 20,000 or so ballots that are coming in after the fact. So thank you for subscribing and joining us as we do and get those ballots in.